The prison of pleasure. You wake up. Before your mind even settles into the silence of morning, your hand reaches, automatically, for the phone. A notification, a short video, a flash of something, anything, to chase away that subtle emptiness you haven't named. You tell yourself you're making choices, but is it really choice, or just conditioning? In this world, no one chains you, no one censors your thoughts, no one forces your obedience, and because of that, you believe you are free. But the most effective prison needs no bars, only enough pleasure to keep you numb, only enough distraction to keep you from ever facing yourself. Epictetus once said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgment about them." And you, day by day, are taught not to judge, not to reflect, not to feel, only to react, only to flee from anything that stirs discomfort. You are not controlled by fear. You are conditioned by ease. And that is the most dangerous form of captivity. The Stoic diagnosis: conditioned into dependence. Modern society does not control you with chains. It conditions you through patterns, small, repetitive exposures to pleasure that train your nervous system to equate discomfort with danger. Over time, this becomes internalized. You no longer choose distraction, your nervous system demands it. The Stoics would recognize this as a distortion of judgment, what Epictetus called a false impression. You are not disturbed by silence, boredom, or uncertainty themselves, but by the automatic judgment that these states are intolerable. This is how the architecture of emotional dependence is built. A discomfort arises. Instead of observing it, you escape it. The brain releases dopamine. The escape is reinforced. Repetition encodes it as the default behavioral script. This is behavioral conditioning at scale, and it is not neutral. For the Stoic, every reaction must be examined. When you feel the urge to check your phone the moment unease arises, a practitioner of Stoicism pauses and interrogates the impulse. Is this within my control, or am I acting under compulsion? Stoicism is a philosophy of deprogramming. It teaches you to see your reflexes not as truths, but as habits. And habits can be replaced. 1. Practical Stoic technique: voluntary friction. Seneca advised deliberate exposure to discomfort. Eat on a plain table, sleep on the floor, wear coarse clothing. Not to suffer pointlessly, but to remind the mind you are not ruled by comfort. In the modern age, voluntary friction could mean turning off notifications for 48 hours, leaving your phone in another room during meals, practicing silence for 30 minutes without stimulus. Each time you do this, you reverse the pattern. You reintroduce agency. And agency, to the Stoic, is the heart of freedom. 2. Practical Stoic technique: cognitive separation. Marcus Aurelius used journaling as a tool to separate impulse from identity. "This sensation is just a sensation," he would write. "It does not command me." In modern terms, you notice the craving, "I want to check Instagram," and label it objectively. "This is my limbic brain seeking reward. I am not obligated to obey." The goal is not repression, but clarity. When you name the mechanism, you weaken its grip. This is not an intellectual exercise. It is a tactical one. The moment you delay gratification, you reclaim a sliver of sovereignty. And that is the essence of Stoicism: to resist the world's programming and reprogram yourself through conscious principle, not unconscious reflex. The price of escape. Weakness through comfort. The avoidance of pain is not neutral. Every act of avoidance is a rejection of reality. And reality, as the Stoics taught, is not something to be escaped, but something to be faced. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is information. To the Stoics, discomfort is training ground, a gym for the soul. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." Yet the modern world tells you the opposite. It teaches that all discomfort must be eliminated, that happiness means the absence of hardship, that pain is a failure. This is not compassion. This is emotional sabotage. Stoic framework. Pain as the teacher. Marcus Aurelius framed suffering as a test of alignment. If something is difficult, remember it was made for you. In Stoic logic, pain is not an obstacle to your growth. It is the raw material through which virtue is shaped. Owe endurance, courage, loss, acceptance, rejection, humility, delay, patience. The modern pathology of avoiding hardship robs you of this alchemy. When you remove pain, you also remove the possibility of becoming stronger. Co-practical Stoic Technique 3. Discomfort reframing. Rather than asking, "How do I get rid of this pain?" the Stoic asks, "What is this pain asking me to become?" This reframe changes everything. Anxiety becomes a chance to practice grounding. Failure becomes material for growth. Loneliness becomes a path towards self-sufficiency. Each negative sensation becomes a summons to virtue. Emotional consequence, the fragile mind. A society that avoids all hardship raises individuals who cannot sit with their own thoughts, crumble at minor rejection, depend on external validation, are easily manipulated by any offer of comfort. This is not freedom. This is weakness. And to the Stoic, weakness is not a personality flaw, it's a result of neglected training. When you reject voluntary discomfort, you embrace involuntary suffering. To become strong, you must learn to stand still in the presence of pain, to let it sharpen you rather than silence you. The more discomfort you can endure with clarity, the less control the world has over you. That, boss, is Stoic power. Pleasure versus purpose, the war within. Pleasure is easy. Purpose is earned. The modern world sells you pleasure because it's scalable, fast, and profitable. But what it cannot sell you, what it cannot mass produce, is purpose. Because purpose requires confrontation with pain, with time, with yourself. The Stoics warned against confusing what is pleasant with what is good. Epictetus was direct. Is it pleasurable? Good. But is it in line with virtue? Only then is it worth pursuing. Pleasure is an impulse. Purpose is a decision. Compare what feeds you versus what uses you. Pleasure feeds the body, but often weakens the soul. It demands nothing of you except attention, and attention, once surrendered, becomes obedience. Purpose, on the other hand, asks everything of you: discipline, reflection, sacrifice, clarity. And in return, it gives something pleasure never can: meaning. Pleasure fades, meaning compounds. Practical Stoic technique number 4, eudaimonic calibration. The Stoics did not chase happiness. They pursued eudaimonia, a flourishing life in accordance with nature and reason. Ask yourself, does this action align with my nature as a rational being? Am I growing in courage, wisdom, justice, and self-control? If not, it is noise, even if it feels good. Calibrate your choices not by how pleasurable they are, but by how aligned they are with your values. Warning: pleasure as a tool of control. Pleasure becomes a trap when it numbs the need for purpose. A mind constantly sedated has no energy to revolt. No hunger to rise, no capacity for principle. That's why you are bombarded with stimulation. It's not random, it's architecture. And the Stoic response is to disengage, not from joy itself, but from the illusion that joy can be found without responsibility. A life of purpose is heavier, but it is also unshakable. You do not need to feel good all the time. You need to become someone worth being. The one who chooses purpose over pleasure is the one the world cannot enslave. 4 Stoic steps to escape the pleasure trap. Breaking the cycle of compulsive pleasure is not a motivational shift. It's a methodical reprogramming of how you live, moment by moment, habit by habit. The Stoics didn't hope for change, they trained for it. Below are 4 Stoic techniques to reclaim sovereignty from a pleasure-driven system. Check Step 1. Strategic abstinence, voluntary discomfort. Purpose: rebuild your tolerance for boredom, discomfort, and silence. Seneca practiced fasting and sleeping without comfort, not for punishment, but for preparation. Set aside certain days, he wrote, to live with the bare minimum, and ask yourself, is this the condition I feared? Modern application: go 24 hours without entertainment. Turn off social apps for a weekend. Skip the dopamine snack. Embrace the boredom that follows. Each moment you do not reach for the screen, you tell your mind, I am not your servant. Check Step 2. Friction training, strengthening stillness. Discomfort is not the enemy. Your intolerance of it is. Marcus Aurelius sat with pain, observing it without reacting. He didn't flinch, he studied it. Train this by practicing 10 minutes of undistracted stillness daily, walking without music or podcasts, letting urges rise without obeying them. Why? Because strength isn't built through ease, it's built through resistance. Check Step 3. Rational interrogation, build inner clarity. Each impulse must pass through reason. Ask, is this necessary? Who benefits if I obey this urge? What would the wise version of me choose? Epictetus warned, don't confuse want with worth. The Stoic habit is to pause, reflect, and choose consciously, rather than react automatically. Check Step 4. Replace pleasure with purpose. Cutting out shallow pleasure means nothing if you don't replace it with deeper meaning. What are you building? What are you serving? What does your pain point you toward? Set a purpose that demands discipline, not ease. Then align your habits to serve it. You don't need endless motivation. You need direction and a system that keeps you facing it, even when pleasure calls your name. The Stoics understood, true liberation is not about feeling good. It's about being good and doing what's necessary to protect the mind from anything that seeks to enslave it. The cost of freedom: isolation, resistance, and inner sovereignty. When you stop obeying the script, you stop being predictable. And when you're no longer predictable, you make others uncomfortable. People don't fear your silence. They fear what your silence reflects back at them. You were once part of the pattern, scrolling when they scrolled, numbing when they numbed, laughing at the same dopamine-fed distractions. But now, you pause, you question, you walk a path no longer paved by impulse. And that path has a cost. Warning: social resistance is a signal, not a threat. When you choose to live deliberately, some will admire you, others will resist you, not because you've harmed them, but because your discipline reminds them of their dependence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If they are doing wrong, that is their problem. You still have a duty to act rightly." The Stoic does not bend for social comfort. They bend only for truth. Stoic principle: approval is not a currency. Seneca warned, He who seeks the applause of the crowd has made himself their slave. Modern translation: if your peace depends on their approval, then you are not free. True sovereignty means you live by principle, not permission. You accept solitude not as punishment, but as proof you are no longer ruled by the crowd. Practical Stoic technique number 5. Solitude reframing. Loneliness is a byproduct of internal emptiness. Solitude is a choice made by one who is whole. Use silence too. Reflect without interruption. Align action with value. Practice memento mori, not as fear, but as fuel. When you remember death, you stop living for applause. You start living for meaning. The crowd may reject you, but the soul, freed from compulsion, will not. The cost of this freedom is real: misunderstanding, judgment, and yes, sometimes exile. But the reward is greater: a life directed by wisdom, not reaction. A life only the brave are willing to live.
The final awakening. Pleasure is a prison you can walk out of. So now you see it. The game, the loop, the lie that comfort is the highest good. You see how pleasure, when worshipped, becomes a leash, how stimulation, when constant, becomes sedation, and how freedom, if left unguarded, becomes performance. But the moment you become aware, you are no longer asleep. You are no longer a cog in the machine. And that is where the Stoic path begins. Not in rebellion, but in self-command. Not in isolation, but in the integrity of your own mind. You do not need more pleasure. You need a direction. You need purpose. You need the kind of inner structure that does not collapse when the world leans on it. That is what the Stoics gave us. Not comfort, but clarity. Not freedom from pain, but the strength to face it with unshakable calm. This is your invitation, not to become someone else, but to return to the part of you that's always been unbreakable, untouchable, free. You were born to be whole, not entertained, not subdued, not owned. You've made it this far. Something in you already knows. So now you must choose. Will you go back to sleep? Or will you walk the harder path, the one that makes you strong? You already know what the Stoics would say. What do you say?